All right, welcome back. We will now move into action item C, approval of memorandum of understanding regarding Measure Z funds between the California School Employees Association, Orinda Chapter 320, and Orinda USD.
All right, thank you, President Weiner. So this item and the next item are really several celebrations. What am I trying to say? As Measure Z, as you know, on March 7th of this past year, our community passed Measure Z with overwhelmingly support, which was really intended to attract and retain our employees with higher salaries. So we've now come to the evening where we can approve the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with our classified unit in order to have the 7% be on there for their salaries beginning. Actually, it'll be reflected in the November salary schedule, which is our next item. And then the retroactive from July to October will be in the January payroll for them. And so starting in November, they'll have an increase in 7%. And what you have as attachments here are the MOU with CSEA and the district, disclosures that went to the county office, and then the approval letter where the county office is concurring with the district's information regarding that indeed we can afford this. So we're asking for approval for this MOU.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to see this on here tonight.
Ms. Weiner, before we enter discussion,
Sure.
I must recuse myself from this item as my son is an employee of the district and a member of this union.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the board? Okay, we have no public comment on this item. So again, thank you for all your work on all this. Appreciate, that we have this here tonight for us to approve. And with that, is there a motion to approve?
This is Eve. I move that we approve memorandum of understanding regarding Measure Z funds between CSEA and the OUSD.
This is Etta. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was Cara Hoxie recusing herself.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're very excited about this.
And moving into action item D, revised salary schedules effective July 1, 2023 for classified and before and after school care employee groups.
All right, yeah, thank you. As this is the companion item to the MOU, and that this is the updated salary schedule, which is retroactive to July 1st and will be, as shared earlier, reflected on the November pay warrants for our employees. So this is great news. And just as a side note, our before and after school care employees will be folding into the CSEA unit within probably a month or so. So this is for the full unit. This is for CSEA members as well as our BASC employees.
Okay, great. And again, thank you for your work on this as well. Are there any
Well, I must recuse myself from this item as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the board? And there's no public comment. So this item is on for action. Is there a motion?
This is Etta. I move that the board approve revised salary schedules effective July 1, 2023 for classified and before and after school care employee groups.
This is Katie. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And action item E, 2022-2023 annual developer fee report.
District allowed to collect school fees, or it's called a developer fee whenever residents or developers expand their residential area or commercial area. And we are required to present the annual report by December. So here's a report. Currently, we collect $2.86 for residential expansion and 0.462 for commercial expansion. The beginning fund balance, there's a report for 22-23, and I find typo here, so we will revise it. But the beginning fund balance of July 2022 was 720,000. We collected 210,000. We spent about 75,000 and it ended with 854,000. And the expenditure mainly used were for TK, classroom, desk chairs, and some studies. And this is the presented to you for as an action item.
So just to understand what is the typo then? Just so this is
The
approved.
beginning fund balance, July 1st, 2023. This should be 2022.
Oh,
And on the bottom, ending fund balance, June 30th,
Should be
2023.
2023. Okay, That's fine. I just want to, if this
we're not going back.
is up for
Yeah.
approval, we'd like to approve it with that modification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from members of the board on this?
Just to clarify, I think you just answered the question that I had, which is the building improvements number on about 46,000, that was mostly for the TK items that you mentioned. Okay, thank you.
And the portable at Wagner.
Okay, all right, because there's also a line for portable leases, so I didn't know if that was. Okay.
My understanding is we can only use this money for expansion, right?
Correct.
So the portable is a perfect example of
Perfect.
what we can spend this money on.
Yes.
Anything result of the
We need the portable to have more students.
Yes.
Great.
Any further questions, comments? No public comment on this. This item is on for action. Motion?
Cara, I'll make a motion. We approve the annual developer fee report
This is that I second,
With modification.
with those modifications.
with the appropriate
Yes, okay.
modifications. So sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you so much, Mika. Moving into our first discussion item, literacy programming updates.
All right. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We wanted to provide an update on all things literacy in our district. So if you can scroll to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So really the foundations of our literacy program are based on both state and district components. So when we look at state components, we're using and utilizing our language arts standards, as well as our ELA and ELD framework. So really focusing on those reading standards for foundational skills. We're going to be talking a lot about phonics and how phonics is going this evening. And so focusing on the reading standards for foundational skills. And then our framework, which has kind of 4 components, which is developing the readiness for college careers and civic life, attaining the skills and abilities of literate individuals, which really means having students that have the skills to demonstrate independence and build strong content knowledge, becoming broadly literate, so having access to a wide range of literature, cultures, and that diverse range of access to curriculum, and then having the skills for living and learning in the 21st century. So when we look at our district components, really utilizing our scope and sequence, our curriculum here, having our scope and sequence, a lot of the work that we spoke about earlier with our essential standards, our 95-hour phonics program, and then some supports we have in our Tier 2 intervention through Hegarty, and then also some of our teachers being trained through IMSE, the Institute for Multisensory Education. And then we have our district assessments, which we'll talk about in a few moments. And then the cycles of literacy intervention, kindergarten through 5th grade, which we have our 2 literacy TOSs here in our audience to speak if they so choose. So, if we can go on to the next slide. So I won't dive into kind of the science of reading too deeply, but an important part of our conversation. So understanding that learning to read is very complex. This ladder of reading and writing, done by Nancy Young, summarizes the evidence about the ease or difficulty for some students when they're learning to read. So kind of at that top tier, the bright green, the 5 to 10% of students who just get it. Those students will most likely need enrichment and extended learning opportunities. And then we have our 35% of our students who will learn fairly easily with whole group instruction, kind of having it introduced to them for the first time. This group, that instruction piece is valuable because they'll grasp it after hearing it for the first time. The 40 to 45% of our students that require explicit, systematic, code-based instruction to gain proficiency. And then kind of that bottom color there, an additional 10 to 15% of our students who need that explicit, systematic, but then frequent repetition when learning to read. So that brings us into the next slide of the science of reading. And so we've presented last year on the science of reading here with our team. And so knowing that it's a scientifically based research completed over many years with experts in a wide range of fields, education, psychology, and it's really about reading and how we learn to read and the issues related to reading and writing. And there are certain parts of our brain that develop when we read, and we have to build those connections because they're not connected right now. And so they're not naturally wired to learn how to read. They are naturally wired to learn how to speak. So knowing that information, we wanted to kind of dive into what we're doing here in Orinda based on some of this, some of the research. So if you will, so some of the things we'll talk about here are current programs, what assessments we're using, the interventions, the PD we've done, and what we're doing around phonics. And that'll be kind of our focus for this one. So the current happenings in Orinda. So we do our...
Sorry, am I moving or no?
Yes, please.
Oh.
Thank you. So our current core curriculum is Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. And there are strengths in this program. So an area of strength is the differentiation and engagement. It really offers students opportunity for choice, being able to be really engaged. They get to choose what they read, what they write about, and that's a big piece of their engagement. Also, a big piece of that is the differentiation that teachers can do when they're conferencing with students and being able to really hone in on what they enjoy doing. Also builds upon background knowledge and also allows students to apply their knowledge. So they engage in text in meaningful ways, and it also helps them pull from their own background knowledge and their experiences and the connections that they can make with the text. And then the verbal reasoning, so really allows students to make predictions, inferences, using that figurative language, similes, metaphors. So lots of strengths with our current Teachers College Reading and Writing program. 95% is our...
That's a clarification. Which grades are the Teachers College program for?
It's all across. Yeah. So 95% is currently we adopted it this last year. This is our first year of implementation. So it's being used in kindergarten through third grade. And the focus is phonics. It's a systematic, structured approach to teaching phonics. So focuses on letter names and sounds, vowel patterns such as EW, OA, high frequency words, syllable types, open, closed, silent E, affixes and root words. And then we also use Heggerty for our tier 2 intervention.
What is Heggerty?
It's another program that's used. It's another kind of Orton Gillingham based program. In terms of assessments, so we have our teachers in kindergarten through first grade administer Acadience. We have Fontes and Pinnell that's used F&P for kindergarten through fifth grade. And then Acadience is also known as DIBELS. It's a universal screener that assesses those core literacy skills. And then our 6th through 8th grade students use the Teachers College reading assessments. And assessments are something that we are looking at this year in our curriculum committee, but also, as we heard from our principals, kind of looking at the common formative assessments. What is our assessment? What does the information give us, and how can we react to it? And what can we do about it? Some additional assessments, there's reading notebooks, participation, conferences. There are multiple ways that our teachers are getting information. And so we're continuing to refine that as we've shifted into 95% and kind of having this framework of science of reading. Our intervention program, our elementary schools have an intervention program. So Stephanie and Aaron are both here. They are our 2 intervention TOSAs this year. So they oversee the program, they train teachers and aides and work with students directly. So each site has an intervention aide and teachers, since most of our 3 of our sites has more than 1 TK teacher now. And they provide intervention training. They provide intervention training to them, but then also those TK teachers provide intervention. So once students are identified as needing intervention, our TOSAs look at each student to determine the intensity of that intervention and then the type of targeted support that they might need. For some students, they benefit from the push-in, right? Least restrictive environment. And then some require a little bit more intensive support. And so then they would be working in a pull-out model. And that instruction is provided, the pull-out model is in addition to the classroom, whatever instruction is happening in the classroom. So this is in addition. One thing we are doing this year is we are starting to do kind of like a mini pilot of the 95% Tier 2 program. They do have a more intensive intervention program. So we've been looking at exploring how that might work, especially since it is our core phonics program. And then Sunday is being used in 6th through 8th. At the middle school, Academy, which is done twice a week, is one of the main objectives of Academy is to provide students with intervention and enrichment opportunities in all content areas. So teachers have used their PLC time to really look at student data from assessments and then create intervention groups to support any struggling students. And that's done during that Academy time. The next slide, I'm sorry, no, that's okay. Yeah, sorry. And then there's continuous progress monitoring done for our intervention program. We want to make sure that we have a very fluid program so students can come in. If they have learned the skills, they've understood, then we want to be able to exit them. And if they haven't, then what else do we need to do? So the model that we have is very fluid. And then our TOSAs have been trained in Orton-Gillingham, which is a multisensory instructional support of really where science of reading is based on. And so they have had that training. They've shared those strategies with their A's as well as with their TK teachers, and really have provided additional teacher support and also professional development during our PD days. All right, so our phonics update, 95%. So our kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers have been implementing approximately 30 minutes of phonics instruction in their classroom daily. And I use approximately a little bit loosely. It's our implementation year. So things have taken a little bit longer for some teachers in terms of really getting into the flow, understanding the program, getting comfortable with it. So it has taken sometimes longer than the 30 minutes. At the start of the year, we provided 95% group came out and provided training for all of our kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers. Each grade level had their own separate training that was specific to their grade level. And then we've offered ongoing professional development during our PD days around science of reading, phonics, and then 95% implementation. That's all been done in-house, so to speak. We haven't had 95% come out. We are wanting to get really comfortable with the program and figure out what we piece specifically, and we needed to just dive into it. We've also adjusted and modified our scope and sequence, so our district-wide scope and sequence. And we are using assessments from the 95% program, and we've had to adjust and modify those as our implementation year. And then our grade level meetings and collaboration. So we've had district-wide opportunities for teachers to come together and discuss how 95% is going, what are some best practices, what are some things that are working or are not working, and ways that we can address that. So then the next slide dives into a little bit of the glows, some things that our teachers have highlighted as areas that they have appreciated about the program. They are noticing that they're seeing a growth in foundational skills. They're seeing that writing and spelling for students has improved. Procedures have been helpful for students to understand those foundational skills. I think the structure, the procedure, they know what to expect out of the program. They're enjoying building words. They're transferring the skills into their writing, and they're more confident and use strategies in phonics to other curricular areas. And that daily practice has been beneficial. Teachers have also explained that it's increased their teacher knowledge and capacity, which it's a glow, and it's also an area of growth, right? So we'll continue to work on that. So then our grows, the program needs more differentiation. And so until we feel comfortable with, until we've got a good sense of the program, it's really hard to start providing opportunities for differentiation until we really understand it. And so, but it does need more differentiation. The student engagement piece of how do we make this more exciting and energetic for our students, that has been also an area of growth. The time management, it's taken longer than the 30 minutes. And I would say maybe a month and a half ago, teachers would say, it's taking 40 to 45 minutes. That's definitely improved. Again, as I think as implementation year, we're just trying to work through all of those pieces that we just don't know. And then the teacher comfort with the program. So that's another piece that has been a challenge, but also the knowledge and capacity around phonics. In third grade, they bring up morphology. And so being able to, provide some professional development to our teachers around some of those specific skills is an area that we are going to continue to work on. And then there aren't any decodable texts. So that is a piece that we are going to start looking at and start building, but we're just not there yet, right? So first year, we're trying to address the pieces that we can, and so you'll see in a couple of slides some plans we have for our next steps. And then collaboration and alignment of assessments. So that's another piece where we want to make sure the assessments they provide us are aligned with, they're aligned. Sometimes we find that programs have assessments and then they're sort of not aligned. We're not finding that quite yet, but we want to make sure that the information we get from the assessments is really going to help us figure out what our next steps are going to be with our students. So then in the next slide, really looking at Teachers College and the science of reading. And as the more we're learning about science of reading, it's becoming more and more clear that they really are two different approaches to literacy instruction. And so Teachers College uses a whole language and balanced literacy approach that really focuses on the entire text rather than on individual components of language. Students are encouraged to use context and their own experiences to make sense of the text. They have a lot of choice, and that's a priority in Teachers College. The assessments include informal observations, conferences, and it really encourages students to take their eyes off the text and to use the pictures. In science of reading, different methodology, so it's rooted in science. There's a strong emphasis on decoding skills. It's really focusing on that structured literacy, the phonological awareness, the phonics instruction. Text is chosen to align with the specific phonics or vocabulary, so very different from Teachers College. And the reading might be more tailored to match a student's reading ability. And it's systematic, sequential, and explicit, and provides data to provide targeted instruction. So the data that we can get out of an assessment is very specific. You know, this piece is what the student is struggling with. They are both focused on improving literacy instruction and student outcomes, and they both aim to engage students to actively in reading and writing. So I think it's really important for us as a district that has used Teachers College for many, many years to recognize the value of incorporating elements from both approaches. So really working towards combining the strengths of the whole language model through Teachers College, that emphasis on comprehension, the authentic literature, and a love for reading with that structured literacy approach, right? That systematic phonics instruction. And I think by being able to kind of really hone in on what are our essential standards, really focusing on the work that we've done, how are we going to align that work, we can navigate that and have the best of both worlds, but knowing that these are different models. And so how do we navigate that as we move forward? In terms of our next steps, so we are continuing to support with our phonics implementation. I met with one grade level team, and we really dug a little bit deeper with the scope and sequence. We'll be offering monthly check-ins by grade level for our teachers. We're going to continue professional development around phonics, science of reading, literacy practices based in science. So we'll look at site-based, district, and then what our county is offering. And then we want to assess the current scope and sequence for both Teachers College and 95%, being able to align the reading and writing genres with our essential standards. We did all of that work, and so we want to be able to align that. And then looking at our assessments, the creation of those common formative assessments, having teachers be a part of that so that the data they can get is meaningful. And so that means we will be reviewing our district benchmarks and assessment. And then continuing with seeing how our pilot for the Tier 2 program and 95% is going, and then continuing to support our 6th through 8th grade ISP teachers with Sunday. And that's where we are.
All right, thank you. That was a lot of information.
Yes.
It was a lot. Open up to the board for questions.
I'd love to hear from our TOSAs.
Yeah, I would
how
as
it's
well. I just
going.
didn't know if there were specific questions
Yeah.
that we had for our TOSAs. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Very open-ended.
Yeah, I kind of figured maybe there were specific questions. people
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering about just, I know you're going into classrooms, how are the students who are not, kindergartners, and so, they're 2nd or 3rd grade, they've been, getting different types of reading instruction for a few years. How are they adjusting to the phonics program? Does it make sense to them, or does it feel like a step backwards, or how's that integrating?
An intervention standpoint, I'm enjoying seeing the 2nd and 3rd graders learning the language that we've tried to use in intervention, such as syllable types or how to break words apart. And so what I've noticed is that I can speak that language and they're understanding it. And then I know whatever I'm teaching, they're also getting it in the classroom. So I've enjoyed having that alignment where it's not a one and done with me and then they're not going to hear it again or reinforce it in the class. So I'm hearing a lot more sophisticated language coming out of the 2nd and 3rd graders with syllable types, phonics understandings, even some of the multisensory approaches of being able to finger stretch. Like you'll hear a lot of kids using different strategies that is allowing us to partner better, I think, with having a structured literacy approach to phonics and intervention as well as in the classroom. Piloting 95 is helping in the sense that Now I know more language that the teachers are using or the specific strategies of how you determine a syllable types. Like there's certain specific explicit steps. So that's helping us be more aligned and consistent so that we're all speaking the same language around phonics, which when you're working with students that struggle, if I'm using a totally different term than what they're hearing in the class, they don't always know how to make that connection.
Right.
So I think we're building, that we definitely had growing pains because things that were considered review in third grade were not review.
Right.
And so that's been the hardest on teachers and students because it was expected that they knew this language, that teachers knew this language, and it wasn't. So that I think will help as we have more years. And we had that with Teachers College too, where we needed a few years for the early grades to have that language built up, to not feel so disconnected.
Right. Do you think
So-
there's a tension between Teachers College and 95%, or do you think they can come together?
I won't start, but then you can finish it off for me. There is a bit, I will say there, yes, there is a bit of tension because the Teachers College, their process for teaching children to read is called the cueing system. And a lot of those cueing systems are asking them to take their eyes away from the word, look at the picture, check the first sound, skip the word, come back. And a lot of those texts, let's say a level A, B, C, D book, whatever, in kindergarten, first grade, are going to have a lot of words that are definitely not decodable for them. So they are primarily sight words or looking at the first letter and it says, I take a pencil, and they have to look at the picture, pencil. I take a book, I look at the, so they're not actually really reading, they're memorizing patterns, they are looking at the first letter, and they're not actually reading the whole word. So you do find problems when students get into the older grades and then they don't have that phonics work that they are now getting. But I do see that TC also has some amazing benefits, especially when it comes to reading comprehension, teaching children for inferencing skills, for, understanding the complexities of texts. So there are definitely there's a time and a place for TC, but I think we now finally have, I want to say seen the light. I don't know if that's the right word. It's like our children are finally seeing the light of, wait, there really is a lot more to reading than just, guess and check. There are actually patterns to words.
I can pick up on this theme if this is not necessarily directly about you. I mean, I guess I'm thrilled to see the progress with the 95% program. Like, of course, the first year is going to be bumpy and it's going to take some time, and both for the students and the teachers, and it's really great to see people engaging, and it's great to see the evidence of it's actually already helping. Because I mean that's what we're here for, to teach the kids. I guess what I'm surprised to see here, I was not expecting to see like this much focus continually on Teachers College, which does not, I mean, no offense, but to my knowledge, does not have the same level of evidence that it actually does that much for our kids. So while I know like appreciation of reading and the enjoyment of it is something, I will just say that personally, the thought of, and I had a kid go through sight words, so I saw this in action, but not looking at the word and thinking you're reading. I mean, you're learning something, but you're not learning reading. And I do think the most enjoyment comes from being able to read. So I just want to, I'm worried about our overall balance between the two. I'm not going to throw everything out, the whole baby with the bathwater, but I would really love to make sure we're giving the kids, particularly at the lower age, grades, that kind of core set of competencies that come. It looks like the 95% program is like right on that path, and that's wonderful. So I guess interested for other feedback on that, and then a smaller follow-up is like, are our assessments really matching the types of programs that we're using? Because it seems like a lot of at least some of the assessments are still based on much more like Fountain and so are based on the Teachers College approach, and we're really moving to the phonics approach. So like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if you have any comments on that, I would understand that too.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys can jump in, but yes, agreed. I think that, like you said, Teachers College, there are a lot of really positive components to it. And so I think our work and ongoing work is going to be, how can we keep those pieces that have really created a place where students are enjoying to read, right? For those kiddos that reading comes naturally. And so what are those components that that joy of like that authentic literature, right? The comprehension piece, all of those. And then how can we like navigate it, right? And I think that that's tricky, right?
That's actually really interesting. I don't think I caught that when you mentioned that before. So would you say like the Teachers College material is like best suited to that, like that top group, like for whom you say reading comes naturally? If I was reading the graph you had,
I mean,
picture, just to think.
Wait, this one.
yeah, the latter, yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps, yeah. And I think there's, like I said, I think there's positives to Teachers College and there's components that are really great. But for the majority of our students, having a systematic, explicit instruction in phonics is going to be really important. And so I think our work and kind of our task looking forward is figuring out, well, what are the essential standards we've selected? And then what are the components of TC that help support that? And what are the assessments of Teachers College that help support that? And so really using our essential standards work and our standards to guide that, to guide our curriculum, right? Because when we adopted Teachers College several years ago, and I think for a lot of our students, for a majority of our students, it's been okay. Right? It's been fine. I mean, our
I
tests.
think that's a really dangerous statement to make business community though, because there's a lot of
Right.
people who use outside resources to help kids who are struggling. So I have heard this from community members that they're concerned that kids weren't learning to read as well as they needed to. And we don't see it at the school level because they have outside help. So I and that's, if there are other options, which I'm really glad we're bringing in, like we want to make sure that.
Yeah, and I'm clearly not a phonics expert. I think there's like all sorts of people in this room that are much more expert than me. But phonics is not a full literacy program. It is a decode the words so that you can read at a full. We don't have a full ELA program. Last year, we saw a need of we must teach kids how to decode. And actually 2 years ago. And that's why we brought in, okay, that is a piece that we were not interested in supplementing, because there was a lot of teachers, and I'm looking at 3 of them at least in here at the elementary level who were supplementing it. Like, I must find phonics. Mr. Shannon did not just start teaching phonics this year.
No, he
He
didn't.
go into classrooms last year, and we were watching him teach phonics, as did Aaron Miller. So, but what we wanted to make sure is that we were doing that across every single classroom, and did not want to implement the 3Q system from the TC. Because we knew that piece was missing in the Teachers College, the decoding of the words. But that's not a full literacy program. So what's the full literacy? It's okay, got to read the words, got to understand the full text. What's the comprehension piece, right? And also the speaking and listening and the presentation. I mean, it's a whole umbrella. So, but we don't have one big ELA program. We just went with the phonics. So that's actually probably the question for the future is, are we doing a TC and font 95%? Or are we moving to a whole different literacy program? Because phonics, as fun as decoding words is for some, and I actually think regardless of what level of a reader you are, actually, you must learn those skills no matter what. You could be a fantastic reader, you better know how to decode them, because maybe it won't catch up with you until 9th grade when suddenly the whole comes up, or 8th grade or 7th grade, right? Because you can compensate up until then. But you better learn how to decode those words. It's not like the most exciting part. So I'm like, we're watching gymnastics in some of our teachers' classrooms to like make it super engaging. Because if the kids, that's the other science, like that's cognitive science of like actual reading, but there's a science of engagement. If you disengage, you're out like this, and you're not learning anything then. So like either they're making it engaging or what else. If they're not interested in what they're reading, they're gone, right? I mean, that's just science of learning. So like what is the ELA? The comprehensive ELA curriculum that brings it all. Is there one? Or are we doing 2? We, leaving components of TC? Because there's a lot of good writing components in TC, a lot of reading comprehension, whatever you want to call it, talking to the text or annotating. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But like reading those 8, leveled books that have sight words, pieces that need to come out, right? So what are we doing it ourselves? And then to your point of assessments need to be aligned to what we're teaching, 100%.
Or even better aligned to what the outcomes
Right.
that we want, and then we back.
Correct.
From that, yeah.
Right.
Well, there are only so many minutes in a day, right?
Yeah.
So if we have 95% taking 30, 45 minutes of a teacher's time, then what's not,
Yes.
what are they not doing that they were doing in that time, and what's the best use of
And Erin
time?
will maybe contradict to what I'm saying.
The conversation and what you're saying, Anita, is huge because we went to a county meeting in ELA, ELD, committee meeting and listening to I did not realize how big our county is. And holy moly,
It's
how
massive.
It's massive, I did not realize. But that is the exact conversation, the entire county. And if the county's talking about it, the state's talking about it, the country's talking about it. And I don't know if anyone else is seeing it. I don't know if there really is an overarching program right now that really is going to be covering everything. So I think that's sort of the work of educators in the country trying to find what is the best way to keep these kids engaged, teach them phonics, still give them choice, give them everything all at once, but end up with proficient readers in the end.
And it might be different at different grade levels, right?
Right.
You know, like the younger grades, more time should be spent on the phonics, and that the older grades, reading comprehension and other things become more important.
That's what we talk about in the early grades. You're learning to read. And we're really trying to do that well so that you can have the cognitive bandwidth to start reading to learn. And that's where it's such a big shift.
Right.
In the decoding and the phonemic awareness and that building the skills to learn to read, although our young readers can comprehend at high levels too, so we don't want to negate that. But then as they get older, we need that automaticity. We need to have mastered that bottom part of the rope that we talked about last year, that word recognition. Like there's, a feeling that you can master that, but you're never mastering the comprehension part of the rope, the verbal reasoning, your background knowledge, all of that plays into it. And even as adults, depending on the content area, we could be really at the beginning stages of comprehension and verbal reasoning. And so that's the part we want to be emphasizing more as our students get older. And morphology. The phonics program goes all the way to K-5. So we only adopted a third, but there's so much around etymology and morphology that we didn't have before. It's building that vocabulary as well. So yeah, we're all learning together. I think it's a hard answer right now, but we're all trying to learn better, do better. But I haven't heard in the county like one perfect program. And I still think there's a lot of guidance coming, and publishers probably working at it as well. So
I don't know if Katie or Etta had anything else.
Yeah, appreciate the presentation. Thank you all for being here and all the work you're doing in our classrooms. But what is a specific action we're taking to address the IEP achievement gaps within, reading or phonics, or what are we doing there?
Well, I think, and Carrie, you can jump in, but at the middle school, we have a tier 2 program, and we have Sunday, which is what we've been using. So this 95% is specifically tier 1, right, in the classroom. And so our intervention program, and then also we've been working together in terms of what are our tier 2 and tier 3 programs that our resource teachers are going to be using to address some of those pieces. And can we all use the same language? Can they be aligned? And if so, how do we do that? So that's something that we've been working, Carrie and I have been working on together of how do we align what our resource teachers, our ISP teachers, or SPED teachers are doing in their classrooms that aligns with the work that we are doing in our gen ed classrooms.
They were offering more support there as well.
Go ahead, Kim.
Just to expand on that.
Mm-hmm.
If a student has reading goals, then they are getting specialized academic instruction from a special education teacher in reading. And those special education teachers are trained in multiple modalities to help a student approach this. So they are getting a portion of their instruction in their general education class, but then they're getting really intensive instruction from their special education teacher in groups that are usually either individual or no more than 3.
Okay.
So it's a different structure that's using multiple methods to help reach the student.
Right, so the reason they're not seeing
Correct.
Stephanie and Aaron is because they're getting individualized, intensive instruction
Right.
reading from their ISB teacher, who are trained in those, in those interventions, on their very specific goals, exactly.
Very individualized goals.
Right.
Thank you. That was my only question.
I have some things, not very much though, that's already been asked, so thank you for the presentation. And mostly what Eve had touched on came to mind. This feels like a transition year with like a very good reason for being a transition year. I'm thrilled that 95% is in there. It sounds like hard work, it sounds difficult, doesn't sound like smooth sailing, but it's making progress, so that's awesome. One of my notes was literally exactly what you said, which was, what are other districts doing if moving away from Hawkins and towards science and reading? So it sounds like it's like, I don't know yet. So I want to make sure that the foot stays on the pedal here in terms of like, what are we doing? Like, what's that block of literacy look like? Is it K1, phonics first, then this part of writing from TC because it makes sense, and then this, or not, or the, what is the block look like so that there's some consistency? Because if it's sort of like phonics or do 95% and then decide what you like from Teachers College with the time that's left, which I'm not saying that flippantly. Like, I've been in the classroom, I could be like, I really like this writing component, so I'm going to do this, but next week I'm going to do that. I mean, you make decisions on the fly because you feel like it's best for your students. But what's the plan to decide this is what we're doing as a district? Do we need to wait for publishers or other input from the county, or like where do we go from here after this phonics piece has been implemented? It's going to take a long time to do that, but what's the next step? Noticing that there seems to be growing evidence that quite a bit of the Lucy Hawkins piece is not serving students. That seems to be established at this point, that there's some stuff in there that is contradictory to the 95 to phonics programs, I'll put it that way. And so what's going to give? And I don't want to just kind of leave it at like, I'm not sure. We'll see how this goes for a while. Like, what's the plan? It just gives me pause because I know that's a giant task, but I don't know where that goes. And secondly, I think what follows that is assessment. So you listed like a lot of assessments there. That sounds like a lot of time to give and to deliver and to assess. And what am I getting out of that? And what does it mean? I think that movement on that would be really meaningful. This is what you're doing. This is what our teachers are going to do in TK and K, because then we know this, or how that works. And maybe that already exists, but it just seemed like a lot of assessments were listed here.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we getting out of them? That's just a general question, not just, can they be consolidated? Are they all serving their purpose, I guess?
Yeah, and for sure, yes, we are working on consolidating those assessments and really making sure they are meaningful. So that is some of the work we're doing this year. Our sites are doing it, our grade levels are doing it, but also looking at those district-wide, the F&Ps. I think you alluded to it, of not being really aligned with our curriculum. Yeah. 95%. So we are examining all of those. And I think kind of, I don't have all answers for you, but what I do have is that there is our kind of next steps are looking at what are the pieces of TC that we want to keep and what do we not want to keep, right? And how does that align with our 95%, and really looking at our essential standards and our standards that we've really are honing in on. So that's going to be where we modify and adjust, I think, our scope and sequence. That's kind of where we are planning to go, is like taking a little bit, kind of like what Aida said, a little bit of both worlds, because there isn't. I've been on the end in districts that have these comprehensive ELA programs, and they're not comprehensive. There's always these supplemental pieces, and it's not addressing all needs. And what I was saying earlier is that we know that TC hasn't addressed the needs of all of our students. And so some is not enough, right? And so we want to make sure it's addressing everyone, but also knowing that there's components that are good from the program. So how do we align it to make it work for us? And I think that's going to be looking at our scope and sequence, looking at our essential standards, and really going through and going, these are the pieces, this is what kindergarten is going to do, right? Like this is the focus for each grade level.
I think if I can just add to the first question, because I think the assessment piece is, yes, we need to revise what assessments and if they're aligned, is the huge focus last year was determining what is essential for us to kind of you heard it from the principals and from Geeti about essential standards. What must every kid, every student at every grade level know in reading and literacy as they leave each grade level? That's like, these are must skills. You want to add something extra to it, great. But this is what every student must know as they're leaving each grade level vertically. So now based on that, I mean, that's what those Wednesdays are about. That's why we needed that time, because otherwise there was no time to ever actually have teachers go and look at that. I mean, that is the work. So when they're sitting down and going like, these are what we've identified as those essential things that every kid must know as they leave. This is the work when it comes in now on Wednesdays of here's our curriculum and what are we teaching. So I will say in my years of teaching, there's always been time like what am I doing Friday before Thanksgiving? Because the kids are off the wall. So what will I do tomorrow for them to actually stay calm? But 99% of the time it's, okay, we as a group, like, what am I doing to address this standard? It used to be like, I'm on my own. And now it's okay, my 6th grade core team, my 7th grade, my 1st grade team is doing this to this standard. That's what we're going with. So last year was all about ELA. Now the twist is we just added a whole new curriculum. So now we have to go and redo because we can't teach all of it. We run out of time of instructional minutes because what do you drop out? And I think we're still navigating that. We had a lot of those conversations here last year is we added what's now taking more than 30 minutes of phonics, but like something's got to come out. So what is it that comes out?
Decide on what comes out.
Well, that's what the teams of teachers, those professional learning teams. So how do you, and that's what but it's a district-wide decision.
Or do you feel like it needs another year? I'm just throwing things out there. What do you see the experts in the room as like the next step towards moving?
It's going quicker. I think it's quicker than we think. Yes, say it. Yeah.
Why do you how do you mean?
I mean, at the beginning, we didn't really even know the program. So we were getting into it with our kids, with the script in front of us. And every week is a pattern and the kids get to know it. And there are some new concepts that come up, but it's the same pattern. And so we're getting better at delivery and the kids are getting quicker at completing it. They have a reading book beside them. So when they're done and waiting for others to finish to go along together, they're reading a book and our kids thrive on reading books at all levels. So I was thinking, we want to do phonics and we want to do ELA, teaching kids how to comprehend and enjoy reading because they do. That's what they want to do most of the day, most of our kids. For some, it's just getting together with somebody on the carpet and reading together, enjoying that togetherness and reading, which is.
And I totally appreciate that. I'm not making no.
But it's going faster. I wouldn't say 30 minutes for everybody every day. The 5th day is always the longest day because there's a lot more activities. There's a spelling test, there's a dictation on that day for 1st grade. So the 5th day is always the longest. The other days go pretty quick. I mean, you're welcome to come to my classroom and see it.
I actually was talking not just about 95% implementation, but like on this overall idea of like the scope and sequence of what we teach in ELA across the grade levels. This is like a massive task, but like.
We were hoping to be, go ahead, Erin,
How do you decide and who decides that? And when do you decide that? Just throwing it out there, because I think those are all big things to wrestle with.
This is kind of some of the work that I've seen being done, just being invited into different PLC days or common planning times. And it is, teachers are now really looking at those essential standards that we have chosen. And we are having to say to ourselves, there's those beloved units that we like, oh my gosh, 1st grade robots, oh my gosh. Okay, there just isn't time anymore. It's like that is what is not fitting in. So what is being dropped out is the stuff that's not necessarily meeting our essential standards. Does that mean we don't do just art for the fun of it some days? Yes, we do. We finger paint, we do whatever. But I think that is where we are seeing a lot of stuff dropping off, is that we are making professional decisions on this was just inherited from 30 years ago. It might have been really cool, but is it really meeting the needs of our children today? that's what's dropping.
Great work.
I think that's important. I mean, we need to be doing that as well.
Yeah.
It's part of this whole process.
So I'll stop talking now, but I have one more thing which crossed my mind as you were presenting this, and this is more just a thought for a future meeting, not anytime soon. I feel like I would like to know more about ELA, let's say from grades 4 to 8. I feel like the emphasis in my time on the board has really been this adoption of phonics, which generally we're talking about younger students, but I just for my own knowledge, like to know more about the program.
Can bring that back this year too as a follow-up, part 2.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, great.
Okay, well, this is a great discussion and thank you for being here. Thanks for the presentation. More to
Thank you for
come,
coming.
obviously. Yes. No, thank you.
Yeah, I just actually, I know I was asking maybe time for questions, but I really do appreciate all the work that's gone into this and the complexity that this includes.
And these are great questions.
Process and
Thank you.
organizational level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into our next discussion item, legal services quarterly update.
So quarterly report, this is first quarter for 23-24, ending September 30th. Any fees paid during this time to the legal firms. And it's divided in different category. First quarter, we spent about 44,000. If you look at the chart in the middle, that's a comparison, to show the comparison from last year. Last year, we spent little over 47,000. It's about the similar amount. And historical amount, annual amount is on the bottom. And this is brought to you for discussion.
So it looks like it's relatively in line, maybe a little less than last year.
That was
That's
the
good.
same takeaway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And we don't know what next quarter will bring,
Right.
right? But thank you for bringing it. I think it's really good. We started
No, I
this,
think it's great. I think
But
it's
4
important. I think
years
we've
ago or
seen
so,
an
and-
increase in different areas, so I think it's really important to break it down like this.
right? And
No, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, is that actually we do, every single legal bill is actually monitored at the individual level, so we know by student, by expense,
Right.
what it is, so we can really monitor
that's good.
call by call.
Right.
I didn't mean to laugh, but that's literally what we're doing. Right, so,
But it's showing, and thank you for doing
yeah,
it, because
absolutely.
we want our money to go to the students and not to the lawyers, so that's good.
Let's hope that continues. that
Yes,
trend.
exactly.
Okay, there's no public comment
There's
on
no
this
public.
item? All right, thank you. Discussion item C, OPEB guidelines and investment report.
Yes, this is another quarterly report ending September 30th. Since 2015, the interest rate is about 4.21%. Last quarter, we actually lost some investment earnings, about 58,000. Right now, net OPEB liability is 20 million. And again, this is brought to you for the discussion.
We're not discussing at this time changing the contribution that the district makes on an annual
No, we're
basis
just
or anything,
reviewing,
just reviewing.
just reviewing the
Okay, thank you.
investments. Are there any questions or comments from any members?
Why did we lose money?
Oh, the market, right?
I know, but I just want to answer, I just want to ask it, right?
It happened last year as well. I can't remember first or second quarter, but.
And it came back.
But then it came.
And then it
came
came back and we earned about 40,000.
Yes.
Just the
Overall.
regular ups and
It's an ups
downs
and
of
downs
the
of the
market.
market, so this is a snapshot, yes, at the time.
Thank you.
Right, no public comment on this?
There's no public comment.
All right, this was on for discussion. Thank you. Moving into our measures E and I items. Our first item is contract with, is it Swinnerton?
Yes,
Listen,
so I can just, if you just give me 1 second, we do actually have a guest who's been patiently waiting.
hi.
Hopefully not for very long. I know, I'll turn it, I just want to, well, I know, it's very, I'm gonna turn it right like this.
No one noticed. Okay.
Once he enters the room. So, Sorry, I'll start talking. So what, I know, sorry, it's awkward. We're just bringing it to the board, a contract with Swinnerton. Swinnerton is a construction management company. And back in 2021, yes, July 19th, because it was my approval date, so I remember it now. Roblin was approved as a construction management company and hired to manage all of our bond funded contracts. Last Thursday was Roblin's last day with us as a project management company, and we would like to, we're recommending actually Swinnerton to carry out the remainder of the projects. We did not go out for a new request for proposal. Swinnerton actually did a bid and responded for the initial proposal and was actually had a highly qualified bid at the time. It's just that the district selected Roblin at the time. It was a slight price difference. It was anything to do with qualifications. So we have recently, Stuart, myself, actually represented from HGIT, not specifically Melissa, who has been so patient here tonight, but Jeff Evans and Mika interviewed a possible team with no promises, but just interviewed a possible transition. And so we're recommending to the board Swinnerton for moving forward as a contract. The contract itself allows us, should they not perform, to sever the contract, but we're hoping that based on the transition meetings that they would perform, because that's ideally what we want. So they would support us on transition of the projects and then taking on any new projects, which modernization, really. And I don't see. Oh, he's on there. His camera's not on.
Oh.
Sajid, can you hear us?
He was saying.
Oh, here he is. Yeah.
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So Sajid is one of the executive, I don't know what, project managers, one of the project managers that would work with Orinda should Swinnerton be approved. Their executive manager is currently with a team in China of Swinnerton team, so could not be here. But Sajid said last minute that he would absolutely step in if there's any questions specifically for them.
Are there any questions? No. All right. Well, thank you for your patience in being here.
We texted him to join in late. So I'm hoping he wasn't here for very long. Okay.
I think he's been watching.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your quick work on, working and negotiating with Swinnerton and bringing this to the board.
Okay.
Absolutely. Always ready to go.
We look forward to working with you.
Yes. There's no public comment on this.
There's no public comment.
Okay, so this is on for action. Is there a motion?
Sure, this is Cara. I'll make a motion. We approve the contract with Swinnerton Management and Consulting.
Ziv, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Ajay, thank you so much. Sorry to not make you present.
No worries, absolutely. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you. All right, moving into our next measured E&I item, modernization scope of work update.
Sure. Okay. Another person who's been super
thank you.
patient. So Melissa, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Melissa.
Yeah, we were off only by an hour and a half on our estimate. So thank you. Did you?
Yeah, I can give it a quick introduction. During April 26th, 2023 board meeting, the board approved a modernization scope that was to be funded by Measure E&I. The approved scope of work included an insulation project in the amount of $6,208,405 and included installing insulation at all of the sites that would provide schools with new insulation and new roofs. After that initial design, estimates and have escalated to where we need to relook at the scope Not all, the installation's going to go the way we thought it would, but I'll let Melissa talk more to that. She's got a presentation.
Yeah, please, that'd be
So
great.
Melissa Reagan Byers from HVAC.
Hi, Melissa.
Thanks for coming,
Hello,
Melissa.
thank
Okay, so got the introduction, so we'll just go ahead. Here is the spreadsheet that we reviewed back in April. At that time, we had two different categories. We just lumped them all into one. So this was where the insulation total was at about, it's 6.2 there. That's before we had the soft cost and contingency. These estimates were done by Roblin as well as our consultant Cumming. And then the total amount down at the bottom equaled out to be 40,600,000 of money for all of the modernization scope. So initially, we did do some estimates where we insulated below the roof deck. So that's basically taking your ceilings out, putting the insulation kind of in the attic space. And then we did Roblin did some preliminary studies to determine whether or not putting it above the roof deck, removing the roofing material, putting a rigid insulation above it, and putting a new roofing back would be comparable in cost. The initial studies showed that it was comparable in cost. And it would also, of course, help with replacing old worn roofs that need to be replaced. And it would also provide a more thermally resistant system. It's just more efficient when you do it that way rather than under in the attic. So following the district's interest, HKIT did a lot more extensive site walks, got on the roofs, walked with roofing manufacturer, walked with our consultants, and looked at a lot of as-built drawings as well, and started to do some design work. And we, through that process, determined that re-roofing with insulation on top of the roof is more complicated. There's a lot of drainage that we would have to repair and really change the way things are draining. Some of the roofs at OIS do not slope appropriately, so you would have to add additional sloping to it. So it just ended up being a lot more. So we said, let's pause and look at this cost again, making sure we're not gonna have a huge budget bust. So Roblin went in, took our design that we had done and did some estimating, and we found out that in fact it is about $9 million more to do it in that way. That is including soft cost and a 10% contingency. We are escalating at 14.21% because we understand this is going to be done over several years.
The district said no.
Yeah, so there's no. Then during this whole investigation, looking a little bit closer into too, one particular campus, Sleepy Hollow, doesn't have an attic space. There is no attic space. It's kind of like an Eichler home, if you're familiar with them. So you can see the structure above. So in order to put insulation in the same manner as we're doing elsewhere, we'd actually have to build a ceiling, which would lower the ceiling height, make for less, not quite as nice of a space. We'd have to change the light fixtures. It'd be a lot more work. So we would recommend, if the board would accept it, that we do still do the insulation above the roof deck and replace the roofs there, at least at that campus. And at the next slide, you can see what that would add. That would add $1.3 million to the
Original budget.
And then what, do the other roofs the other way?
Insulate in the attic. So the main goal is, of course, to get the insulation in so that the mechanical system or the HVAC works efficiently.
And are the estimates for that accurate? I mean, I guess I'm a little worried about all the estimates.
The estimates were originally done with the set of drawings that were to the level of submitting them to the state architect. They're not 100%, but they're like a 90% set. So that original insulation number was done where we said, okay, what if we have to remove the ceilings and put the insulation in the attic? So that was done with some detailed drawings. And it was kind of a quick analysis from Roblin to see if, let's do a cost per square footage quickly of the roofing, insulation, taking equipment off the roof and putting it back on. It just was a more simplistic view of it, and it didn't take into account a lot of the complexities of the roofs.
You feel more confident about the original number, the below the roof numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other numbers on here kind of going along those questions that are estimates without the drawings? Because what I'm hearing, and maybe kind of going along with Cara and Eve, is if the estimates are based on, they have your drawings and they're sort of DSA approved, kind of that 90%, that they're probably pretty accurate as they can be sort of now
inflation or
without
whatever, yeah,
installation. Are those all in there, or do we have any other numbers in there that are based on the kind of quick estimates from Roblin?
The only thing we don't have, because we kind of paused on the design, is the 30 swing
Oh, right.
remodel.
Correct.
And so we have a budget number of 1 million, and that's, then you add the 10% and the 20% of soft costs and contingency, so it will go up a bit. But we need to define that scope before we can really do a full estimate, and part of that process is making sure the scope kind of fits within the budget, so we're not gonna be putting in Italian tile or something into the spaces.
And Melissa, can I ask, one of the questions that we had asked originally when this was brought to the staff and we said we need to bring it back to the board was, well, do we need to do insulation? Right, I mean, because it's a really big item, it's $7.1 million, or like, do we have to add insulation if we add two dual pane windows?
How important is the insulation?
How important is the insulation to the securing of the envelope and for the HVAC efficiency?
Well, the windows are the most important piece. They will provide a good bang for your buck. Insulation is highly recommended by our mechanical engineers, but after discussing with them, if you wanted to do kind of a wait and see, kind of push that towards the end of the whole modernization process, maybe some campuses really work very well already. Every campus is a little different, and you don't need to insulate them. Maybe some you do, and maybe you don't anywhere. So it'd be kind of just to see how well the system is cooling and heating the spaces for a couple of years.
I mean, I know we've seen a huge increase in our electric bills with the HVAC, and I guess we're hoping that the windows, doors particularly, will help make it so we don't have to, hopefully it'll cut back a little bit on the need for the HVAC to run all the
Title
time.
24 also.
Right, but then we have to have that running all the time. So I'm just not sure, given that Title 24, that we're gonna get the money back for the insulation that you would get back for the windows. Sounds like are the more important.
If we did decide to go down this path of wait and see, would we need to approve the changes today, or can we just put it on hold till we?
I mean, the other side of it is at Sleepy Hollow, at least, I know they've had a lot of leaks and other issues, like you're solving.
Yeah,
so maybe that's the one.
Right.
You're solving a big problem there, but I don't know if any of the other school sites.
Well, you're not doing it if you're putting the insulation underneath.
No, I know, but I don't know. I don't remember from Stuart's presentation, whenever that was, about the roof situation at other school sites and whether.
They all have roofs on.
Generally pretty poor.
All of them.
I mean, that's the honest answer. Some are worse than others. We went through last winter with, knock on wood, very few leaks because we were proactive in going up and patching areas of concern, getting gutters clean, things, water away from it. The drainage that Melissa's talking to, I would guess, would be mostly OIS, as far as it's just a terrible drainage system. I've been up on every roof in the district, and it's just a terribly designed system.
And OIS is also the biggest roof, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that cost is significant for OIS.
Right, it's significant for OIS.
Yeah.
But it would be significant for the district if we had to figure out a different way to fund a roof at OIS.
Right, but if we are just talking about approving this, with it going underneath, you're not even touching the roof.
I know. That's why I'm
now.
not in favor of really doing the other ones underneath. I'm wondering, and I'm asking Stuart, because I feel like we had a certain amount of money in the budget for the roofs, for the insulation. And we're not going to do 5 schools insulation with the roof on top that way, but maybe we can do 2 schools or 3 schools. And which would you prioritize doing it that way using that line item? Because at least we're solving multiple problems.
It's kind of a fine balance to walk. I mean, ideally, it'd be nice if one of the smaller schools was in the worst condition, because then there's kind of a
Right, you understand what I'm saying.
easier justifiable answer.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's the case. I think,
Is it true that Wagner's, the newer one, is its roof better than the others?
I'm sorry?
Is the Wagner Ranch roof better than the other roofs, or is it still?
It's a different type, and most of it's comp shingle on there. And I was up on the roof last week, actually, and even some of the ridge caps, there's missing shingles. And so, no, it's not in better shape.
Darn.
It's a different system. It's a different roofing system than most of the other schools with the built-up roof.
Mhm. So I guess another question is just,
Sorry to answer your question. Wagner is probably the easiest to insulate from below because most of it is the T-bar ceiling. So am I correct there, Melissa?
Correct. So we actually just proceeded with assuming that we would be insulated from below because you could kind of see that pretty quickly that it was going to be a lot less expensive to do. Popping up the ceiling tiles is really easy. Elsewhere, you're going to have to take down a lot of those 1x1 tiles with wood furring above it. So it's a little more complex.
That's why Wagner's the cheapest on that budget.
mhm. Well, I mean, even just if we went with this recommendation to spend an extra 1.3 million, I'm not 100% sure where we are with our budget. So I don't have a good sense of.
I think we had left, was it on here? Mika, maybe it's on the other agenda item. If you don't, I will skip it. We had unspent in the budget. Sorry, I have it in the next quarterly. Maybe we don't. I mean, it was maybe about 6 million or so that we didn't allocate.
It's indicated in the next report.
Where do you?
Right, but that's 6 million
That's
total.
out of a
No, that's
huge.
what I mean.
Everything,
Yeah,
for everything,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's.
Total, which is
right.
really.
Not very
nothing.
much.
Correct.
And we still don't even really know what the Sleepy Hollow NPR has come in at, or what I just feel like there's so many.
So that was the question about the possibility of the wait and see.
Right.
Almost sort of like can we?
I mean, I'm in favor of a wait and see.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Make this call right now.
I remember the rain coming in at Sleepy, I'm in favor of doing the roof insulation at Sleepy and not doing some other things. It sounds like
Truthfully though, we're gonna have a rainy season starting like
tomorrow.
this week,
yeah.
and so we're not even gonna be touching it for this.
No, it wouldn't be for this year, but just going forward. I mean,
Right.
we know that's an ongoing major problem.
Right, but I don't know that we need to make a decision on it today, knowing that.
Well, I don't know how long the DSA approval process is. That's the problem with all of this is
Right.
you'll talk today and we're going to not be able to do that work for 2 or something years possibly.
Yeah, so we do need direction on what goes into our final DSA approved set. So we're kind of in between. We have OIS, we did do a pretty extensive design for, as well as for Glorietta. We could pull that out and put it back to be underneath into the attic space. We could show new roofs at all campuses, and then you just wait and see and just pull that scope out. You can eliminate scope from a DSA package as long as it's not required for accessibility or structural.
Is there a downside to doing it that way?
pay.
Paying for it, right, but I just want to.
I have a question.
I'm just answering. I'm answering.
Yes.
Does the cost, right, the more the cost, it tends to trigger more peripheral
Good point, yeah.
monitoring. So by keeping the scope in the DSA,
Mhm.
there are other items that are triggered because that scope's there.
Right.
Whereas we pull it out, some of that works
Okay.
away as well. So it's just something else to factor.
And modernization is really the biggest part of the money we're spending. We had 105 million.
105.
Yeah, and 40 million of it is now designated. So that's a huge,
Mhm.
I mean, it's really the biggest project.
Yeah.
And I still don't have a great understanding of how we've done financially on the projects that we're already in the middle of.
Mhm.
So it's hard to know if we've overspent or if we're gonna have extra money that we can put towards modernization or not.
I would never count on extra money.
I know that.
Sorry.
Just
Even when they
be
tell me there's gonna be extra
optimistic.
money, I say
Doesn't
there's
seem-
never.
And then we have this wrinkle with not really being able to trust the estimating that Roebland did, or feeling that way. I don't know if that's fair or not fair. But
But none of these estimates are with HPIT, so it's not, yeah.
Yes, I mean, the overall, all the estimating was done by two different estimators, and one of them was our consultant upcoming, and they're really very good. What I did was I actually took the higher of whose ever numbers, sometimes Roland was higher, sometimes Cummings was higher. So for creating this chart here, I used the highest number to be the most conservative of either one of the estimates. The two estimators sat down, reconciled, made sure that each other had similar scope and that their unit costs were accurate. So it was a pretty robust process to get to this chart. It was just changing the insulation kind of midway through. Probably should have been done with a little more design before they did the estimating.
So just so I understand, if we give, go ahead on, for like essentially for this chart, so you can keep moving with the DSA approvals, but then say, okay, you know what, things are coming in more expensive. We don't want to do insulation at these other three schools. Can we do that later? Like, can we pull, as you say, we can pull things later still?
Yeah, there are some scope that type of scope can be pulled out of this project, yes, insulation scope.
It's just that we're paying for the DSA review, so we're losing money on it,
Yes, and
correct?
yeah, and there's additional design fees for us because we're changing the roofing.
And what's the DSA timeline?
It could be like 6 months.
6 months?
But we're the only one if we pick this one, the only thing we'd be changing is the Sleepy Hollow. Correct. Okay, so it's not that much additional design cost, just the DSA.
Right.
The one last caveat, and I'm just throwing everything out there for us to consider. We take a wait and see attitude on some of this insulation. We find out that, we got to insulate and we're not, there's escalation on that. So those numbers aren't going to be.
the numbers, because of
Right.
That's absolutely.
And I'm not trying to talk anybody into anything. It's just another factor to think about.
We're just sort of paying for the option now, but we can
So I mean, it's clear we can't do all 9.3 million, whatever that number was. I mean, we don't have that, right? So that part's clear. The question is, in my mind, should we go ahead and do the over the roof insulation for Sleepy Hollow and leave in the rest of the numbers for the other schools, which are the attic insulation?
And that would leave us.
And then we could
just under
still pull
4
that.
million total.
Right, and then we could still pull out that attic insulation at the other schools later if we didn't want to do it.
Correct.
Or should we pull out that attic insulation at the other school now so that number's better, more aligned with the money?
Yeah, but then we take that risk.
But then I think you're taking something away from those other school sites that you're giving to Sleepy
Sleepy,
Hollow.
yeah.
True that they may be in worse shape, and especially given the mid-century modern thing, I used a mid-century modern house, like.
We've made an effort to be
It's-
somewhat equitable across our school sites and what we're doing, and this is an area that.
I just think I think there's a possibility that school is losing more heat, so they're in worse shape than the others if.
Sleepy Hollow will definitely, just with the way it's constructed, those used to be big louvers. up on top where it's, so I guarantee you that there's a lot of heat loss up through there because it's just not so, we want equitable as we can, but the
The roof is different, is what you're saying.
from Sleepy Hollow is by far the worst as far as letting heat out and letting cool out.
Yeah, so to me, those aren't things that you can make equitable, like you get that or withhold from Sleepy. It's just a different building. My follow-up question is this number that we're looking at, if we did the on the top insulation at Sleepy Hollow, does that include a new roof, or are we also finding money for a new roof somewhere? This is
Oh, that
all
is
in.
the new roof.
This is a new roof plus insulation all in one.
That is the new roof.
Okay, so it also takes care of the roofing problem at one site.
Yes.
Right? And probably it would be the most inefficient school if we did not insulate it.
Right.
Is that right?
I think it's accurate.
Okay. So then that part to me makes sense in terms of
Right.
making sure the projects we're doing actually, they're efficient.
I guess the other thing, yeah, I agree.
Well, I guess the question then is, what are the needs for the other schools?
Well, that's what I was just thinking about, and whether they're wings, like,
Can we
yeah,
portion it out?
right, like, are there different wings, like at Glorietta, is there one that's, been more problematic than anywhere else that we should address, but we don't really need to address the others rather than the entire school?
I think they're all pretty similar.
It's been a while since I've looked at that roof report. There was a lot that were, I think we had red designation, which is kind of at the end of its life. But definitely by far OAS had the worst.
Yeah.
But OAS is also the most expensive
Right,
because
I
it's the
mean, if you were
biggest.
to do it, that was $7 million. Oh, no, sorry.
I don't know that we have, yeah, I think
Was it?
Yeah, 6.9.
for what it's worth, it feels like right now we can
See that?
proceed on this,
It's almost.
if this is the right one, kind of this type of arrangement,
No.
but we have time later to decide where we actually spend the money. Some money will have to get spent to submit this to DSA, but we don't have to spend the big dollars until a little bit later when we'll have more visibility into how much we have left, and maybe we can do some more research to see if there's ways to slice and dice it to make sure the most impactful areas are addressed.
Right.
Or maybe some more information about which schools really need the insulation to make the
Yeah,
HVAC work.
yeah, once we have some of the
Beyond Sleepy
HVAC
Hollow.
numbers. would
Is
be
there
great.
another school that comes to mind that without insulating is problematic?
I think Sleepy Hollow is the worst. I think that the other schools, Glorietta, definitely the windows are horrible there, so.
But those we're definitely doing, at least in the current plan.
Correct, yeah, so I think the windows are going to improve things dramatically at those.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess I'm hearing moving forward with the Sleepy Hollow recommendation here, but I'm unclear on what the board, how the board would like to go with the rest of the insulation here.
It sounds like we just leave it in as Melissa's got it with the attic insulation in, but we could decide not to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That it's a smaller number than leaving in the over roof number, so it doesn't seem as.
Okay, so any motion that we would have on this would be to approve this slide on page 6 of the presentation? Is that what?
Yes, the slide on page 6.
I don't know how I'll start.
That's fine.
Does that make the most sense to you, Stuart? Is that why the slide on page 6 is there? Okay, thanks.
Okay, and there's no public comment on this?
There's no public comment.
Okay, so is there a motion then to approve the modernization scope insulation above the roof deck as presented on page 6 of this presentation?
Mrs. Eve, so moved.
Cara, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. That was complicated.
It is.
For saying it, so.
It is.
Okay, continuing, measures E&I quarterly update.
I'm gonna cruise through this.
That's
because
fine. And this is only
yeah.
discussion item,
Yes,
correct?
correct. So one of the updates between now, and we were just doing this last month, I want to say last month. Okay. So is that if you see on slide 3, that all of those dates that were supposed to be completed in August, they were all delayed. So we are still completing them. And then the project modernization was updated to InDesign. So I'll just go quickly to project overview for Measure E. As you can see,
Just quickly on all those ones that are delayed, do we have new dates or is it?
so I'll
Okay,
yes,
there are.
yes, I'll get there in a second. Yeah. So for Measure E, the budget originally, well, actually, if you remember last year, we moved a little bit around, but the budget was just under 52 million, and the expenditures currently are a little bit of 33 million. So there's about 18 million still remaining. In Measures I, the revised budget was at 48 million, and there's a project balance about just under $19 million. And Mika's the one who does all these, and she's excited to.
So can I ask something?
Please.
So if you total Measure E and I here, it says that the project balance is currently 37,359 and change. So
that's what we have not spent yet.
And so how does the 40 million that we were just talking about, does that have to come out of this 37 million?
Yes, but the soft costs some of the soft costs had already been taken out.
So we don't really have 6 million. It seems like we're a little closer to the line than that looking at this number.
Well, soft costs, I mean, soft costs are 40%, 35% of the entire cost. So a lot of that is already designed, architect. So that's
so
why
we might still be able to.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even for the redesign that Melissa just mentioned.
Even the additional 1.3 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those
Some of
are-
that's under what's encumbered.
Correct.
already.
Or
We get 37 million, we just said we
Some
just
of
spent
it-
41.
Yeah.
How's that work?
So some of it is encumbered and some of it is in design.
And these
Exactly.
other columns there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that was what I started worrying about.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm kind of, when I'm watching that, that's what the questions are like, when can you pull it out? When can we kind of wait and see? Because it is when we're that close to it and every project is constantly over, because that's just the nature of construction. It is worrisome.
Right. Well, we don't even have anything that's finished, done. Okay, we know exactly what we spent on it. Yeah.
Not one has been completed.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So speaking of all the project updates, Sleepy Hollow, and kind of to your question is, I mean, I actually literally put a question mark on there because we're hoping.
Right. Well, the bioswale
Yesterday,
looks
we hope
better.
in November, and I'm hoping by New Year. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's the way it feels, because you keep.
It's a moving target.
Is there a chance for some sort of a ribbon cutting or
Sorry?
something?
We're
Ribbon
hoping.
cutting at some point there?
Yeah.
You
have a
Show
beautiful.
our community what we've done.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and more importantly, is there a chance to have Saucil give us any money back, given they've
The
been so
liquidated
late?
damages it would be really hard to.
It's very frustrating,
It is. I agree.
really.
Yes. What you're seeing right there, I think you've seen the internal and the external, actually the picture on the outside, even I took that last week, is a little different already because they have put together more outdoor seating
Furniture,
and furniture. The elevator is
my Vader.
almost
The
there.
elevator, the
Yeah.
component that failed.
Yep.
They were.
Right, I saw that whole thing.
Component's been replaced. We're waiting for a retest date.
And then the
Back
bios.
and did their preliminary retest ahead of the state coming back, and we're just waiting on a date.
That beautiful piece of lawn is our
I
bioswale.
know, it looks much nicer
It's
now.
pretty, it's
It
wonderful.
looks gorgeous, so we could actually have a ceremony there. So,
Ceremony on the bioswale, we just need some steps down or something.
oh,
I
yeah,
just need
it's-
an explanation, a little education around it.
Yes. I now notice bioswales everywhere, so
Isn't that interesting, right?
they're phenomenal. So, that's the multipurpose room, specific project update, with regards to the budget. The building that just is growing every day exponentially is our student services building, and that is to be completed at the end of January, maybe just slightly going into February.
This is
But that's
exciting.
really exciting.
Mhm.
And then The HVAC projects, I think we've heard quite a bit in here, but we are in this perpetual commissioning state of trying to just get the final commissioning report.
The fact that they weren't completed prior to school opening early enough to do the commissioning and the tab and all that
Makes it really hard to
with
do.
unoccupied space
That's the piece.
stretches that process out.
But
'Cause
that,
you'll find little issues there. Okay, now over here, we're having this.
but it really could be any day. So that's what we're hoping.
We're hoping, but I'm kind of digging my heels on some issues that I've found that I kind of want addressed and corrected, because I try to explain to them, okay, although we've reached tab, I think that we may be drawing some inside air out. I have to put my maintenance hat on. What are we going to end up with? I want something viable and consistent throughout the district. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're addressing those issues.
Thank you.
Is that why we need to extend the inspector?
That's the student services.
Oh, that's for student services. Okay.
We already extended this one.
Yeah, okay.
So that's really the quarterly update
Right.
with regards to, so at the next meeting, we're hoping to have Swinnerton here, because now we're all the transition meetings for them to take over, and then they would actually work with budgets together with Mika. And we've received all their information on their hard drive and so on, or Roblin's information, and now they will be taking on, so.
When are we moving forward with the 30s wing at OIS?
We've held on to, and really the next step was to actually assemble a committee group
At
at
OIS.
OIS to really determine what
What
is
they
the
want.
need
Right.
for that. So assess the need, because it seems like what was the need back in 2018 is
May
not
not
the
be the
need,
need
and then
today.
it has changed the plan like 4 different times. So we really need to assess what is the need for that space, and then go through the design process, because we didn't want to just add
Right.
classrooms that are unnecessary.
Right, right.
So
right,
truly go with what the need of the staff is, or the students, yeah.
right. That's good.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board?
One of my questions was about the wing at OAS.
Sure.
And then for the new student services building, that's a lot of furniture in there. Is that, have those costs been accounted for somewhere?
Sure. What we did there is we got because there's nothing in the design that says, you look at it, it's this desk here, these pieces of furniture. So I reached out to Sam Clark months and months ago, give us a proposal well into 6 figures. Well, we can't just go with them. Let's get some others. So I've reached out to 3 other competitors. This is the Sam Clark pieces of furniture that they're recommending. Give me something competent, identical, whatever. So I've got those proposals. One came in identical to the Sam Clark, but a bit cheaper. So that's probably who we'll go with. Now we're going to work with the end users, because some might want a stand-up desk. It's not going to fit what's been proposed. Some of them may have a nice desk already, stand-up desk that they can bring in that's going to save money. things
Right,
like
yeah, certainly.
So that's where we're at in the process right now. Knowing that we have to make our choice, bring it to the board, get it ordered before the.
Is furniture included in any of the costs we've just been talking
No.
about, or is that's separate? That's
Correct.
Sorry?
It was not included in
I
the,
assume so, but I was just wondering.
it was not originally included.
Okay, so it would be funded how?
If it was at the elementary schools, the parents club or someone else might be able to help us, but the OIS doesn't have the same kind of reserves, my understanding, that the other school sites
Well,
do.
we would propose that the furniture would be funded from the bond,
I know,
even though it's not, and it may not be approved by the board, but that's, like, we're gonna have an empty building otherwise.
well, we
I
need
hear
the
part of
furniture.
This does also seem like something that could potentially be brought to the OAS Parents Club, or
They just don't have the reserves.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's in the bond, because I don't really love the idea of buying furniture with bond money. I think bond money should be spent on things that you amortize over 30 years, that are, gonna last. But I also hear the point, we don't want to have an empty building. And we want to be able to move everybody in.
It's clear what furniture can be brought over already.
And that's what we
want
want to do.
offices
Right.
Right.
have that or
Correct.
not,
Yeah.
and then understand what we're left with to
Right,
pay for.
so
and how.
that's the job
Yeah.
that stewards
So
is
that
doing.
stuff can happen.
Furniture can be added later too.
And I know the wellness.
Or at least
have been
changing
done
it,
with
right?
donations and they
Right.
look great.
Well, the library as well, at
Mhm.
OIS was,
Right.
donations.
So that was my one thing. And then just generally in thinking about the next stage being modernization, I just want to reiterate my view that the work should hopefully at the end look cohesive.
Yeah.
And like fence height, for example, I drop my kid off at Sleepy Hollow every day. The fence is like so high. I don't know if that was necessary by regulated to be as high as it is or like away from, or it could be cohesive with what's already there. It's, to me, the student services building looks fabulous. Looks like it's always been there.
Mhm.
I think it like fits in, but just as hopefully the projects get wrapped up over the next couple of years, just that those paint color choices, et cetera, kind of make it look like they've been there to the extent that's possible. So like we're talking about this a lot tonight. I just wanted to name that I think is really important to making the finished product look
Right,
modern.
and there is painting, I think, right, Melissa, and
Yes, there is.
for all the campuses as part of the modernization,
Right.
which will help, right?
A lot, actually.
Paint
yeah.
really does a lot, so but that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, although I think it was 15, well,
No, we
no, it's
approved the
more,
whole
I
paint.
see it, I
Yeah.
see it in there. Yeah, I was
There
just looking on it, okay. Okay, anything else on this item? All right, this was on for discussion. Thank you for bringing that. Moving on to measures E&I, item D, extension for inspector of record.
This is similar to other items we brought to the board. The original proposal, a contract with DSA inspectors was to have it end in August. Well, it's gone on, so this is to see the project through the end. Maintain the continuity with the existing inspector, DSA inspector, to get the project complete.
Thank you.
And you're happy with the inspector?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
It's actually the same inspector. He's working for a different entity over. He's also doing the MVR project as well.
Oh, the same in Sleepy
Same
Hollow.
inspector.
Okay.
oh, that's good. It just mathematically, so it's about 85,000 for these 5 months. That just seems like a high number.
Yeah,
It's actually negotiated down from
Yeah.
110
The original
or
proposal was
something.
quite a bit higher, so
What does he cost? Like, what's his usual monthly rate? Because that,
it's not a monthly rate. So it's if you look at the proposal, they have it broken down
Daily.
by month and.
oh, sorry, for some reason,
Month.
I didn't, okay, there it is. I didn't.
Days.
It's page 5, last
There's
page.
that. There's that much work to do every month. I know you've already negotiated this, but I just want to make sure I understand what I'm
No,
asking.
you're.
I mean, it seems like an inspection
First
day.
proposals, I'm like,
These soft
what?
costs
Not
are
even gonna-
crazy.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I
make any
mean, it's
sense.
just amazing how
Yeah.
expensive all these soft costs are, and yet you can't do it
So
without
so
it.
those are the hours he's already billed for September and October then? So
Right, they'll
for
actually.
December,
No,
maybe,
it's moving forward.
well,
Right, but we're just approving moving forward.
oh, right, but
Yeah,
I'm saying
yes.
these November, December hours may be on the high side, so we're just, right? Okay,
They could be, I mean, I don't know.
so it's but it's a not to exceed this total amount of
Mhm,
85,000.
Correct.
That it-
Oh, they'll go
that it-
to 80.
In a.
Right, I'm trying to.
Basically, he's saying he's working full-time for us. Is that true?
In a perfect world,
Like, it's-
in a perfect world, it'd be nice if you could kind of do it in segments, right?
Yeah.
We're not there. I mean, we're stacking trades right now. They're trying to get the roof on done, so there's inspections on the framing. They're waterproofing, they're getting the windows in, so it's kind of multiple
Coming.
trips. You know, you may do an inspection in the morning, you're calling them back in the afternoon because now we're ready for this, just to kind of keep that ball rolling. So is it done as economically as it could? No, it's not, but it's being done to get the project waterproofed and then completed.
It's like availability for 8 hours a day.
Right.
It kind of feels like, yeah, so the numbers show.
And paying to try
No,
to
he's
keep it on,
literally our guy, yeah.
on track too, right? So it doesn't extend beyond.
And to be
I
honest, it
understand
feels like we're just held hostage.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, so it's the guy that's been with us for a year. I mean, and then like, oh, so if we don't, so then we can't get the building.
Can't do
It's not like
anything.
the hourly rate per se is the problem. It's just like, that's a lot of hours. but
No,
I guess
100% agreed.
Stuart, you have a good rapport with him.
I'm sorry?
Inspector, you have a good rapport with the inspector and
We do. Moving forward with the modernizations, we'll be looking, kind of casting that net a little wider, maybe a little more oversight with our new construction managers as far as what inspections are you doing? How many hours did you spend? Things like that.
thank you.
And if that's a concern, do we get pretty good accounting after the fact of how
I
many?
can't hear you even.
Does he give good accounting of like how many hours he did spend so that we
They do.
confident about that?
I mean,
Okay.
on a daily basis, it's nice to be looking over somebody's shoulder and know that they're being watched.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, no public comment on this. This is on for action.
Well, this is Carl. I'll make a motion. We approve item D, the extension of the inspector of record.
This is that I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and our final Measure E&I item for tonight, proposal from HKIT Architects to provide services related to additional work at Sleepy Hollow Elementary.
So I'll just be very quick on this. And Melissa's here to answer any questions. So we, when we deferred the work at Sleepy Hollow for the NPR project, we then recently started talking about, is that actually the best, the best way to move forward with that project? So really what we're talking about is we have a BASC building that is built into the ground, that is to be moved up to where the old NPR was demoed. 2 portables that are currently in a temporary status that need to be moved to where the old BASC is then, that all needs to be asphalted concrete and they need to be placed on top. And then a redo of the entire asphalt and so on. We also, there's a solar issue where the former solar panels used to be, basically a shade structure on the lower parking lot. Those were removed and the design was to put most of them on, and it currently still is, on top of on the new NPR. But the DSA actually came back and did not approve the majority of them. So we're actually losing significant portion of our solar panels because they just declined it. So, we are,
Somewhere.
I'm sorry?
We need to put them somewhere, right?
We should, or otherwise
Yeah.
they're just sitting in a shed, or a storage unit.
Was it turned down by DSA?
The structural, they
Weight?
did not like the structural weight.
Wait on.
Correct. And I think in kind of looking through a lot of emails that were coming through at the time, everybody was surprised by that decision. We knew we were losing a certain portion. We went from 180 to 99 originally, and they cut it down to 50 solar panels. So that was a big surprise to everybody involved, I guess. So that was the consensus. So what we had asked Melissa and Jeff from HKIT to do is to actually examine a possibility of a different plan, really leaving kind of due to increase in enrollment in Sleepy, increase really in need in BASC, to have separate 2 spaces for TKK and upper grade classes, is to kind of mimic the how Delray BASC is structured, to what would it take to have that up top and leaving the current building where it is, as opposed to extracting it, and then seeing if we can actually keep those portable as where they are, or what can we do with those to make it
And then we'll bring-
permanent, because none of them are permanent, but they're expiring in their status right now. So, and then with solar panels, what would it look like to put them up on top and actually give a shaded structure to the top, in a top parking lot,
Mhm.
as opposed to on the solar right now, on the
On the
NPR,
roof.
excuse me,
Yeah.
on the roof of the NPR. So that requires all sorts of design. So that's what this proposal is, to do all of that work.
At least it's all flat and
Correct.
graded and
Yeah.
ready for whatever.
And I just want to also confirm that the work around the BASC building, should we get new portables, is not part of the bond.
Mhm.
The work for HKIT and also a portion would be, we're really looking into developer fees. It's on more students, more TK students, and utilizing a lot more before and after care needs. So we're really looking into that funding as opposed to funding utilized, and also eventually utilizing BASC hopefully for that ongoing funds, not bond funds.
Right,
The
but you-
solar is different than
Right, right.
we're talking, so it's kind of a split funding situation.
But this would be for new portables then also?
Yes.
So this would be new portables.
So I know
correct?
last year we ran into some issues with timing around, getting our requests in and then.
Yeah, we were doing that in spring, yeah.
It was in the spring? For some reason I thought it was earlier.
It was in
than
the spring because that's when we learned about the enrollment increase.
So about the portable.
It's like March, April.
Yeah,
We got that in May.
in May.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're within the
So that
timing to
was-
be able to have that.
And it was a crunch too.
Right, I remember. So
it's a
that's,
crunch.
yes.
Right. So if we do this work with HKIT now, we should be able
Doing
to
it.
get the portable order in for next school year without a time crunch.
Right, and
It's gonna be time crunch. Look at Melissa.
I just wanted to state that this is just, this portion that you're approving today is for us to study this and get an estimate of it so that we can bring that cost back, say this.
Right, no, oh, I
Right, right,
understand. I just was asking a more general question relating to portables because we ran into an issue last year of,
Correct.
question of whether we could add another portable when we were talking about shifting things around at Sleepy Hollow and we couldn't do it because it wouldn't be able to be installed last summer or this past summer.
Right.
Right, the benefit to the way we're looking at it is, as far as changing the scope from the existing BASC up top is we wouldn't be excavating, lime treating and getting that soil ready to put foundations. It would be pretty well trying to get it, reach compaction, get asphalt over it so we can set portals. So it's a easier, more economical process in theory.
It is, there is, this will be part of the study is to make
Right.
sure it can be done.
Right.
Because, just a lot of schools right now are having to rush to put on portables that have restrooms because of TK. There are not a lot that are just at the, yards that they store them at to bring them on. So I'm working with the people who do the portables to make sure that they can be available with the
Right, well,
features
that's
that
part of my
school needs.
yes.
You need a restroom, you probably need a sink in there.
Mhm.
So that'll be part of the study. And hopefully next board meeting will come back with a little more information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Right, any further questions on this? This is,
What would be the
I'm sorry, go ahead.
for the current portables then? That would be turned into classroom space?
Yes, so that's the next part would be classroom space. Yes, classroom possible wellness space to move them out of those little rooms. So there will be a little bit of a restructure, moving kind of a TKK.
Yeah, to
That was
make
the
space.
original.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would need to restructure a little bit, yes. But they're the only school that uses like science, music all
Like
in
the
one,
same
so
room.
there is a need for extra space for sure. And we're still hoping to move more children out of Wagner there. So we're just looking for increased population.
All right, there's no public comment on this. This is on for action.
This is Eve. I recommend that the board approve the proposal from HKIT Architects to provide services at Sleepy Hollow Elementary.
This is that I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And thank you so much, Melissa, for being here and
Thank you,
this,
Melissa.
Sorry.
all this time.
Yes.
Our agenda is slightly shifted this week. I don't know if anybody noticed, but we're doing our communications and announcements before we do our board policies. So we are going to move into communications and announcements. OEA.
I know, sorry. We can hear it.
Oh, good. Fantastic. I'm Charles Shannon, President of the Orinda Education Association. So members of the board, Spurtek Glimmy, directors, educators, parents, and community members. November, exciting month. We're celebrating Native American Heritage Month. It's important not just to celebrate the legacy that Indigenous history makers have left, but also to celebrate those who continue to shape our society, lead their communities, and impact our culture today. This month and all year long, we celebrate these Native Americans in our classrooms. November is also a month when we think about all that we're thankful for. We as educators are super thankful for our amazing parents, guardians, caretakers, for being their child's most important teachers, advocates, and nurturers. Research shows the most effective way to increase student achievement is for families to be actively involved in education, as we see in Orinda. And they do this each and every day. And I think that's what really makes us such a rich community. We have so much volunteerism, participation of our families. So we thank you. To update you on the progress of our negotiations, the OAA bargaining team will be meeting with the district's team on December 7th. We're super excited about that. We're going to revisit the tentative 22-23 collective bargaining agreement and get that ready for a second ratification vote of our members. So we have a very collaborative group. Our two teams work hard. We'll just go back in there and see, what we can do and put it back out. So we're looking forward to that. OEA also looks forward to the district's response to what we've asked for during the current 2023-24 negotiations. As you've heard earlier this evening from Vicki Hilty, we're so grateful that in Orinda, attracting and retaining excellent teachers is a top priority. When teachers earn more, higher quality educators are present, and that directly impacts the quality of education students receive here in Orinda. You may know this, but there were more than 10,000 teacher vacancies, according to the Department of Education, in 21-22, and that is increasing. To make matters worse, applications for teaching credentials fell by 16%. So teacher salaries are critical right now. The number one reason why teachers are leaving education is compensation. While 48% of educators are planning on leaving the field due to compensation, 42% have already left, and that's throughout our state. The good news is that help may be on the way. A bill advancing through the California State Assembly would raise salaries by 50% for teachers and school staff by 2030-31. The legislation has brought forward AB 938, and that aims to reach that goal by establishing a new local control funding formula with yearly salary targets for districts, charter schools, and county offices of education. So we really do hope that that moves along and gets passed. Until then, raising teacher salaries by at least the 8.22% COLA for 23-24 will help retain and attract the best educators for Orinda students. And on that note, we want to thank you.
Thank you, Charles. I don't see anyone from CSEA here.
There's nobody here from CSEA.
Cabinet?
I think we've had a lengthy meeting. So I'll just say I'm very grateful that last week's lockdown went really well. So I'm grateful for our collaboration with our Orinda Police Department, Chief Sullivan. Our teachers at Glorietta did fantastic. It is so important that we practice those protocols and safety procedures. Every single person knew exactly what to do, where to go, how to communicate. So it was an emotionally draining day for them at Glorietta and the district. But it does give us an opportunity to actually go back and examine those days. So yes, we have learned a lot and continue to go through and learn through, but it was a really, actually went, all things considered, went really well. So, but with that, we're really grateful for all the hard work that every single person here does and all of our staff members. And we're hoping that all of them will enjoy a nice, good week off next week. So.
Thank you. All right, board reports. Katie?
I'll be quick. I'm looking forward to the holiday break too. Hope you all have a restful break. I think the best thing we've done as a board in the last couple of weeks was visit Wagner and OAS. I really liked being able to do the site visits. And we have Walmart City Hall coming out in December. We have steering committee meetings, which I think are also really great to have moving. I'll be attending the one board meeting tomorrow. And then I think after Thanksgiving, I have a lot of meetings.
Yeah, just looking at the calendar to think of what has happened. So there were the visits. Glad I was able to make the Wagner Ranch one, and then we had some good conversations leading up to the Wagner Ranch nature, or the Orinda nature area. I'm looking forward this week to the 2x2 of the city, and just continue ongoing other community meetings. So.
I've really enjoyed the site visits the past couple of weeks. Really enjoyed the Delray Halloween parade. That was cute, delightful. Even seeing our superintendent and all her 49ers gear. That was the highlight of my day. Sorry.
Oh, well, thank you.
It was awesome. And looking forward to upcoming meetings we have and the holiday. And hopefully everyone gets a delightful rest.
Absolutely. I don't really have much to add. Had wonderful site visits. We don't have a bus meeting until December, so I have no bus. Otherwise, hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of meetings recently,
Right.
but so I am looking forward to the break. We do have coming up after Thanksgiving, we have our annual school board, California School Board Association
Meeting.
Conference.
Mhm.
So looking forward to that. It's local this year, which is nice, and look forward to, getting together with our neighboring districts and having conversations with them and meeting other states in there. So excited for all the work that we're doing on all those committees.
Yes.
And I, like everybody else, hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. There's a lot to be grateful this year. So wish everybody a wonderful holiday. Moving to our board policies. We usually have a little
blurb.
Okay, well, I will just, board policies we usually present as one action item. These are policies that are updated based upon recommendations from the California School Board Association. And unless there's a particular policy that any board member would like to talk about, we will act on these as one. Okay, with that, is there a motion to adopt the board policies?
This is Eve. I move that we adopt board policies A through H.
This is Katie, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And then moving into our consent calendar, items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and are acted on by the Board of Trustees in one motion. There's no discussion of these items before the board vote unless a member of the board, staff, or public requests specific items be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. It is understood that the administration recommends approval on all consent items. Each item on the consent calendar approved by the board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Sure, this is Cara. I move we approve the consent calendar.
This is Ed, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And our future agenda items?
Right, so next regular board meetings on December 11th. It's our annual reorganization meeting. And then we'll also be bringing back the board handbook with those edits. First interim and a BASC update. And Carrie will dazzle around the room about attendance. And then we want as much excitement as we saw tonight. And then tonight.
It's hard to go there.
Yeah, January, we'll be talking about English learners. I'm excited about the integrated pest management report. And then.
Please no images.
I think we must. SARCs and we actually got a couple of questions about how's the student schedule working. So we actually do plan on bringing kind of an update around how is the student schedule.
That's good.
So that's what's coming up in January, that's the draft right now unless things change.
Special board meeting.
And we do special workshop that is scheduled for December 5th, 4th, December 4th. And we'll publicize that, focused on if we have the budget done by then, kind of around the budget and first interim. So that's that.
Great, thank you. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
This is Eve. I move we adjourn.
This is, go ahead, Katie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.